and welcome to EyeSee's brand new podcast series. My name is Sandra.
I'm Sanya.
And I'm Mirna.
And today we'll take a deep dive and pick apart some myths and misconceptions surrounding the potentially controversial world of plant-based products and alternative protein. We'll comb through some fresh study findings on online shopping behavior within this category.
And don't forget about going over some industry news.
That's so true. But let's first get a feel of the room. Who here is plant-based?
Well, let me come out and say that I've been vegan for almost 4 years now. So yeah, you could say that this topic is close to my heart.
I like to consider myself a flexitarian, so I'm still eating meat. That's a confession here. But I'd like to reduce, and this is what I'm actively trying to do.
Right. I think I'm somewhere between you two because some of my family members have made a complete switch to veganism and being, 100% plant-based. I was forced into this and I embraced it wholeheartedly. And I think I've managed in the last year to decrease my consumption of meat up to like 70%. So, yeah.
That's cool, Sandra.
Right. Now that we have that covered, there's so many misconceptions about plant-based products. I think they're to the detriment of brands and companies that are investing in them. So let's tackle some of them. Myth number 1: plant-based food and plant-based products are just too expensive for the everyday consumer. What's your take?
Oh, let me just put my Mythbuster suit on. Zip. If I had $1 every time I heard that line, I would be able to afford a vegan burger now. No, I would really say that myth is busted. And the quickest example I can think of right now is the ongoing egg shortage in the US that I'm sure you all heard about. So basically, the inflation mixed with an avian flu outbreak has spiked the price of eggs across the United States, which turned more consumers toward the plant-based substitutes, such as Just Egg, for example.
That's a pretty extreme and very specific example. Can you think of something more universally applicable in the category?
Yeah, it's also the reality in a way. And apart from like my personal experience, there are just so many studies and articles that show that cutting down or cutting out animal products completely, or even just meat, is way more affordable for the average consumer. I even remember a stat. I read this one study that proved that, for example, vegetarians spend an average of $750 less on food per year than their meat-eating peers.
Oh, wow. That's actually quite impressive. I should maybe look into saving a bit more. That's actually a perfect segue to myth number 2. Plant-based products, but especially plant-based meat, is made just for vegetarians.
Yeah, well, that's also quite the generalization, but I understand where it is coming from. I mean, why would meat eaters opt for fake and possibly different tasting meat alternatives when you can just get your trusty burger patty? But I think it's undeniable that there is a general growing concern about both the health of the planet and the health of us as individuals. And so more and more people are looking into how they can personally contribute to this issue. And buying less meat and more plant-based products tackles both of these concerns at the same time.
We've just wrapped up January, and some reports state that over 40% of consumers are buying plant-based meat on a regular basis. A lot of people in my personal life, including myself, have adopted a lot of new rituals such as Meat-Free Monday, and generally the trend is trending.
Absolutely. And I think you're a good example of that because as you say, you're not vegan, but this is something that you turn to on the regular. And regardless of the reason, like why you're turning to it, is it for environmental reasons, for ethical reasons, and treatment of animals, or for health reasons, we all end up at the same aisle in the supermarket, basically.
Speaking of myth number 3, as shopping plant-based is picking up, is increasing, basically the claim is that shopping plant-based is simply still inconvenient or tricky. How do you feel about that?
I think I'm going to sound like a TV commercial right now, but you can really make a plant-based dish with one trip to your local grocery store. Yeah, I partially agree that some meat alternatives can be harder to find as we're still picking up in the industry. But at the end of the day, you don't really need all of them for a nutritious plant-based meal. And moreover, TikTok and social media in general are already great platforms for influencers and normal folk alike to kind of post plant-based cooking tips and tricks and life hacks, which all kind of makes searching for recipes and ingredients super convenient. And I that's what I turn to.
Right. TikTok, YouTube, all great sources for like Gen Zs and millennials to learn how to really implement, more plant based into their lives, whether it's food or cosmetics or, fashion choices or generally any aspect of lifestyle. But I also have to wonder what are the other windows of opportunity to let in more plant based products into our lives. Within, I would say, maybe an older segment or perhaps more conservative part of our population.
Yeah, that just makes me think that there's so much room for innovation in this category. And the truth is, it's still such an expanding and changing part of the food industry. So I'm personally really looking forward to hearing Mirna's study breakdown and what the research says.
Nima, can you give us a little background on the study and the methodologies used?
Well, sure. We ran a passive tracking study following the online behavior of 75 meat eaters over a period of 3 months in the United States. With their permission, we recorded their browsing histories and selected for food related online behavior.
Great. And passive tracking, to some of our listeners, that might be a new term. Can you go a bit deeper and explain what it's used for? How is it used by your clients?
Yeah, it's the first step in the holistic understanding of the consumer's path to purchase. This exploratory phase provides us with valuable insights into consumers' natural behavior, which means not claimed and not moderated, when searching the category and brands online. After consumers consent, we are able to analyze respondents' browsing history in the past 30, 60, or 90 days. Passive tracking provides answers to some of the most common clients' questions related to the category online behavior. Such questions are which touchpoints are most frequently used, um, what is the typical number of visits to a certain website, and from which websites are visitors most likely to come to their category.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it is. So, what did you find? How are online shoppers actually exploring and buying plant based products?
Well, first up, almost half of the shoppers are interested in plant based, and that's 43% to be exact. This is to say that plant based products are a far cry from being a specialty food intended for vegans, but quite the contrary. It's an everyday food choice among many others regular consumers make. And to confirm this finding, we then asked 1,000 respondents directly through a questionnaire whether they have tried these products and if they're willing to. Noting a similar result, that we found that 30% of consumers have already purchased and consumed plant based products, while another 40% are willing to do so.
Things are looking quite optimistic, it would appear.
Yeah, but the great potential is still out there to grow the category further. And given our findings, I would say that it's about time that plant based products are moved from specialty aisles to the regular aisles next to their animal based counterparts.
And that would definitely help bust myth number 3 even more.
Here, here.
There's still good reason to curb that optimism because plant-based online-related behavior, although being widespread, it's still under 1.5% of all meat and food-related visits these consumers had. This is quite a small percentage that will hopefully grow in the future, but for now, we consider this a trial behavior among meat eaters.
Mhm. So, overall, how would you say consumers look for plant based products online?
First step is the retailer's websites. They're the most visited addresses related to plant-based products. 65% of the sample that we followed visited an online retailer in search for vegan or plant-based products, with little research before or after the visit. Retailers' websites are probably very good at both informing the consumer and selling the product at the same time. So I would say that brands that are looking for where to start reaching out to their shoppers, their own PDP on a popular retailer is already a good choice.
And what about like food related blogs and articles? That's usually like my go to when looking for stuff like this.
Well, we found some of that too. Around a third of our sample visited any food related blogs searching for information on plant based alternatives. But fewer went through search engines like Google or Bing, giving considering the nature of visited blogs, which were mostly recipe blogs, consumers most likely encounter a product on a retailer's website and search for online recipes and inspiration on blogs.
There's like an abundance of data that came out of this study, and we're only touching upon some of the, tip of the iceberg, as they say. But was there any particular finding that you found surprising, something that's counterintuitive that you didn't really anticipate?
Let's say that with all of the recent talk about meat protein alternative, I expect that these kinds of products would be higher up in popularity in online search.
And they
They were,
weren't.
yeah, they were.
Well, actually, besides dairy, of course, which was first, full meals are the second most searched. So meals like soups, chilies, curries, and burritos are all more frequently looked up compared to plant-based meat itself. I believe that these are still majorly the same meals we're used to, with one or two ingredients switched out. Plant based burger patties, sausage, or chicken nuggets may be expected to have a too different of a flavor, so it may be saved for later trials.
But I assume that dairy is still a fan favorite.
Yeah, dairy is still the most frequently searched product, and as such is pretty good entry point to the category. This may well be a spillover from brick and mortar, where dairy plant based products were pioneers in earning a spot in regular aisles. From what we see, they carved themselves a space next to animal dairy in consumers' minds as well.
Right. That's really great to hear. There's so many, there's a lot of variety now in the category, and I think we're all starting to build up our favorites.
Can I also ask, like, I'm interested in which brands were like most searched for? Are there any standouts there?
Well, plant based specialty brands are still the most popular among online shoppers. However, that doesn't mean that mainstream brands should not innovate in more plant based options. When looking at which PDPs, which are product detail pages, shoppers visited for the plant based products, the top of the table is still reserved for native plant based brands, which is not really unexpected, keeping in mind that although many brands invest in plant based products, not many of them are mainstream USA brands, according to the FAIR report.
Like I said, there seems that there's so much room for innovation.
Yeah, I would say that brands considering entering the category with new products should think about known or familiar products where only one or two ingredients are animal based. Personal health is still more important than environmental impact, and this is based on the research topics in the sample. So, when it comes to communication, this should be emphasized first.
All right. This actually makes me think about the potential barriers consumers might face when it comes to product claims. In one of our previous studies on building sustainable products, we uncovered that some claims that we're used to seeing, like zero waste, sustainable, or even eco-friendly, simply perform very poorly on real life shelves. Is there any trigger? Is there any like negative effect of some claims on plant-based products?
Well, my guess would be that people who are not vegan still find it hard to reach for products that say they're vegan or vegetarian. They just sound exclusive. And I think there's still a bit of a stigma around it, but it's definitely getting better. And what about you, Sandra?
I think plant based is a bit more inclusive in comparison to vegan, definitely. People tend to link veganism with a particular lifestyle and might not feel like a vegan product is for them.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Sandra. And of course, if unsure how will the target audience react, testing is the way, and this stands for any development stage of the product. Testing can help while still prioritizing ideas, selecting concepts for further development, and of course, when the product is fully developed, including packaging and product claims.
We're never going to say no to research. Thanks, Mina, for walking us through this study. If you guys are interested in more, you can request a full report and the link below. There's so many updates. There's so many articles floating around. While preparing for this episode, we've stumbled upon many news articles that claim the plant-based industry is on a downfall.
Yeah, but then you go to, let's see, Peter McGinnis's LinkedIn, who is the CEO of Impossible Foods, a very famous plant based brand, and you see a different story. So, yes, the sales of some plant based products like refrigerated plant-based meats have been dropping, but others are skyrocketing at the same time and truly kind of pushing the category to new highs.
I saw the Impossible Foods even took out a full page ad
Mm.
addressing the controversial report directly. And Peter had a good point too. He said, we're in a category that it's in its first gear. It hasn't been created yet, and people are trying to say that it's the death of it. It's a fad. In the beginning, the internet was a fad. In the beginning, cars
Mm.
were a fad, and horses were going to stay. So, electric cars were a fad. I just don't like the implication, nor do I think it's accurate, said Peter.
Yeah, I do agree with him. And I still don't think that giants like Nestle, Unilever, or Danone would continue to develop plant based products if that is the case. But I have seen a comment from a data scientist at Accenture saying that fake meat is fad and it should not be something we should ever want to scale and it should be transitional at best. But then again, you have people like Maximilian Malayev, the nutrition strategy director at Unilever, stating that plant based is a sweet spot between many trends and it's good for people's health and it's good for the planet. So the discussion never ends, apparently.
You've already mentioned LinkedIn, which reminded me. Have you seen that their HQ has become mostly plant based in an attempt to reduce their carbon footprint? And it's proven to be quite popular among the employees. I would say it's cool.
Yes, well, I'm very jealous of them.
So, a lot of talk about plant based, a lot of talk about sustainability, a lot of talk about climate change. Is there anything that stuck to your mind? Like, is there one particular insight from this month that you really feel strongly about?
Well, since we are on the topic of sustainability, just last week we were testing a packaging with sustainability claim on it. And the new pack that client wanted to test had a very good execution of a sustainability claim. So much so that shoppers assumed that the product was more sustainable than it was. The client wanted to be accurate with their communication, something we commend. So they toned it down a little bit. The insight here being that too much of a good thing can sometimes be bad.
Deep. That's deep.
Interesting.
Right, how about you, Sonia?
Well, yeah, it's not exactly from this month, but I came across it this month. So it was a LinkedIn post by Alina Halonen, who is a Finnish behavioral researcher. And she talked about a study that happened in the UK last fall. It looked into food marketing and the behavior of participants who were kind of asked to order food online as they would normally do. So they were presented with like three options. It was burritos. So they had a beef burrito, a chicken burrito, and a vegetarian burrito. So we had three cells. I'm getting all researchy here. So we had, of course, the control cell. We had a cell that was called the social nudge condition. So basically, to the vegetarian burrito, there was like a label that was added that said the most popular choice. So assuming that people were more likely to reach for that one if they knew that everyone else was doing the same. And the third cell had each burrito show a scale from 1 to 5 based on their environmental impact. And so obviously beef had the worst grade here. It was a very red flaming 5. A chicken was a 3 and the vegetarian option was the best. It had a 1. And the study, and I'm going to quote here, it says, so basically the results show that although both labels were effective at promoting participants to make more sustainable food choices, the eco label was the most effective. And it was much more effective than the social nudging because it kind of shows that each option, and you have the agency of choosing, you know all of the information. It's more transparent than this kind of vague, oh, most popular choice type of label. So yeah, I found that really insightful.
I stumbled across this Credit Suisse Research Institute report this week that really identified Gen Zs and millennials in China and India and other emerging countries as being more likely to align with sustainable consumption than those in developed regions. So my assumption would be that these like more Western open, maybe progressive countries would be more prone to look into sustainability and buy sustainable products. But what this study actually showed is that it's quite the opposite. So all of these myths that we've busted about, being ready to buy expensive vegan foods and everything come down to this. yeah, apparently the emerging countries showed far more interest and are more prone to actually look into buying sustainable products and are more open to allow their government to regulate sustainable products and their distribution. For me, it's a really cool finding. I think also from an aspect of maybe some of these countries are suffering direct consequences of climate change, and this is really conditioning the way they respond to this. But it's a fascinating finding, and I think it really surprised me.
Yeah, and it's really important to have the context in mind and to test, not just to assume based on the Western population.
Look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
All right, thanks both of you. What an interesting chat we've had today. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Mirna, and thank you to everyone who tuned in to our first episode. Make sure to follow our page for upcoming episodes so you don't miss us tackling important topics such as pack and planogram optimization. We're specifically looking at Shopper because this recession is hitting us hard, everyone. So stay tuned and reach out with topic suggestions, questions, or generally comments. Bye bye.